Hello again. Nice to see you here, and I hope you enjoy the film in the third collection. We have here some guests, the scriptwriter and the director of Pathologies of Everyday Life, the first film included in the collection, and actually the representative, the author of the fourth film in the collection, Lucia Kikosh, with contraindications. Of course, as you know, our festival friend Cristi Mărculescu, the Romanian film critic, is here prepared to moderate the discussions. And next to me, as I like to say in this Zoom, I have my dear colleagues from Egypt and Greece, Andrew Mosen and Ioana Criona. Okay, so let's begin the discussion. Cristi, please.
Okay, hello everybody. As we did of all conversations, because this is actually a talk and it needs to be honest and friendly and with zero stress for all of us, except for the technical internet connection things that are continuous stress. We will do things like this. I would like you to introduce yourselves and to talk about your film and the things I'm curious, and I'm sure everybody who saw it and people who will see it in the future are curious about, is how did this project start? What did it mean to you as a director? Was it the easiest and the nicest thing possible to do? Is this the original idea? Did you work with it? And so on, and you can tell us everything you consider it's interesting and important and amusing for some viewers to see. So I think we should actually start in the order of the screening. And the first film was Pathologies of Everyday Life, right? So hello.
Hello. Hello.
And before you start, I want this film because we have Ioana with us, and she's the head of the Greek selection of the festival. I would like Ioana to do an introduction about this film because this is a festival with very different countries, very different ways of producing, financing, and as far as we saw, very different themes in films. So I would like to welcome Ioana to talk a bit about how she found your film and what's so nice about it.
Yes, hello also from my side and welcome everyone. Yeah, I'm very happy that this film is part of our competition. We have a very nice aspiring duo from Greece, is George Zafiropoulos and Alexandros Athanasopoulos, and they're working together since ever, I guess. It's their second project together. The first short film they did, it was also a cooperation, a teamwork. And also the first film, like Pathologies, it was in English language, and I would be curious to know why they chose this language to express themselves in the cinematic language. And so I'll pass the mic to them, and before that, but we'll sure come back to this at the end of the discussion. I'm also aware about their new project, which is very, very interesting and in a different language, I think, this time. So we might also speak about this one. And about our backgrounds, we met about 2 years ago, and I firstly became aware of their latest project they're working on, and then I saw their first and second films, and I was very excited about them. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and the stage is yours now.
Okay, so basically this Pathologies of Everyday Life is the second short film we made, and it's a part of a trilogy of sorts. Ioana has She just mentioned has seen the previous one, and we began these movies, making these films, because it was easy for us to approach, because they have like this simple like structure, like always two persons in a certain location, and they have like a conversation that has like a certain twist in the end. Sorry. So it was more or less kind of a school for us, because we had other projects we want to further make further on, but we could not afford them. So we began making this like more compact 2-day shoots of these films. As for the ideas, this whole universe is George's creation, so he could say more about the story at this point. As for Pathologies.
Well, the story is basically about two pariahs, two 30-year-old people, guys who used to be classmates. And on the day of their high school reunion, they decide to do this grand gesture. Basically, they're complaining to the entire universe that it's society's fault, their misfortunes is society's fault, and they want to kind of do this big gesture to show them, you know, that it's their fault, basically. And so they decide to, this is me giving the ending away, but I guess that's okay. They decide to kidnap their high school theater teacher, who never gave them any good roles in their high school theater plays, and they assume they have this sort of delusional belief that because they weren't cast in all the big roles in high school, their latter life was always that of the side character, of the villain. And they've decided to kill him as a gesture, as a symbolic gesture. That's the story in a nutshell.
All of our movies, these two movies, and as for the third that's coming, it's one of the next movies we're making, may come from like our screenplays George wrote, but all of them have parts of like conversations we've had with George since forever, because we've been friends like for the past 15 or 16 years. So they're like small universes of our like relationship that we hope that could reflect any other like similar friendship, wondering about any philosophical or ethical question that could arouse either over drinks or over random meeting at a bar. And this is like something from our previous movie, but there's like and maybe this is like the reason why they have like this universal like setting, like they could be anywhere in the world, because like these two personas symbolize like friendships and coming of age situations that anyone could meet anywhere, more or less.
It's very interesting. You mentioned you have a bigger idea. I mean, a trilogy means it's a bigger idea than a film. Did you ever consider doing something similar in a web series format? Because it's a very, very efficient approach to filmmaking. You have characters, you have one set, and each moment is very, very clearly defined. You don't jump for time before and after, none of that. It's very modern, and it makes me think that you can develop this even further, but as a web series, maybe? How do you feel about that?
So George had some ideas over the years doing some series, but it's really difficult to, you know, fund them from a point on. I mean, even for these films that are like really have a really basic setup and could like be done in 2 days. I suppose all over Europe, but even here in Greece, it's like really, really difficult to produce films, because it's very difficult to find support.
But it is interesting. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be something episodic, as in it wouldn't have continuity as in like plot-wise. But I could have like thematic continuity, which is what we're trying to do in the trilogy. So in that sense, we could do that in a web series format, which has been done. I mean, usually you think of web series and TV shows and everything as having a, continuity in terms of plot. Same characters, same story that carries on from episode to episode. But this is different characters, different stories, but there's something similar in format, as in one location, a two-hander in one location, with somewhat philosophical connotations at each point, during each episode. So yeah, I think that could translate well into a web series, and we'll think about it. It's a good idea.
Yeah, because the web series, I met this film, I never knew it existed, but we had it in a festival in Romania last year, and it started as a web series, pretty much with the same concept you guys have. One sequence, one place, 2 or sometimes 3 characters, and well, they were actually, this is amazing, they were financed by the Swedish television, or the national broadcaster of Sweden, to have these small episodes, which are available on their website, of course, in Swedish, but they put them together one after another, and they have a feature film of 1 hour and 20 something minutes. And it's very interesting because you actually have this moment that is very clearly defined, and it's outrageous, and it's somehow, I find it more amusing than philosophical, because I laughed a lot. Yeah, you could consider this.
Yeah.
As long as did you shoot the third one? Is it over? Are you post-producing it?
We're planning it, but because of the lockdown,
We stumbled upon COVID. Look, we were preparing the third movie, which is like it's called The Last Day of the Universe, and it has a similar setup, but it's more like it's gonna be the third movie. So we think we've evolved enough so we can like break loose about like the quite strict structure like the film you watched and the previous one had. But we stumbled upon COVID, so this made it made it a bit more difficult. And but also something very good that happened was like that we're about to make another movie that got funded from governmental like
TV, the public broadcast.
Broadcast funding. So we're about to make 2 movies: the end of the trilogy and a bigger.
The one that Joanna mentioned at the beginning.
Right, which is like in Greek. It's our first movie in Greek.
Yeah, we can. I think someone asked why we tend to write in English.
Yeah, Joanna asked you that.
Yeah. Well, we both have a certain. The first movie we decided to write in English because we think there's a bit of an issue with Greek dialogue in general. We find it kind of, I don't know, awkward at times. Obviously, there's been lots of work done recently by directors and writers that's kind of tried to solve it in very creative ways, but the Greek language to us is not exactly very cinematic, or that's what we assumed. We don't exactly believe that now because we're doing a movie in Greek, but we did at one point, and we just wanted to try out English because we were brought up with English-speaking movies and everything. Also, we had in mind, well, actually that was during the second movie, but the actor that played in Pathologies, the guy dies in the end. He also starred in our first movie, and we love him. We think he's very good, and we want to write stuff in English for him. So he's going to play in our third movie as well. He's our muse.
Also, as for the Greek language, it's not a matter of like blaming it on Greek actors or something, but we both decided that we didn't want to try doing this movie, the Greek one, being so unexperienced. So in a way, without in a way, this trilogy was a small ambiguous step for the movies that are about to come. That we have to face like a lot of stuff, including the Greek language and how it's like pronounced. Because for us Greeks, it sounds awful. For foreigners, it sounds okay because you don't understand what's happening. But for us, because it derives from like 100 years of like theatrical approach. It's a bit difficult for us to direct properly the language. But this is an issue we're hoping to resolve.
Greek has a lot more gravitas than English. That's what we think. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we could say the same thing. The theatrical way of acting and the sound of the language for some of the Romanian films also. So it's not just your opinion about Greek films. I think it might also be a reaction to your native tongue. You always want it to sound perfect, especially in your film, and it always gets a bit frustrated.
Obviously,
What you just mentioned is important because, like, us making these two first movies, like, brought us closer to Earth, away from the fantasy of everything being perfect and not ever being able to produce something because it's not exactly as you thought of it. So it was important we began with movies that were closer to, let's say, the fantasy, so we could like deconstruct it in order to be able to be more relieved of all the burdens you have when you begin like desiring something. Let's say, sorry if that sounded weird, but it's more or less how it worked for me.
Yeah, it sounded honest. It's okay. I told you I agree with some parts. Some parts of it I can even identify with. Thank you, guys. Let's go next. Ahmed, are you with us?
Yes.
Hello. You have a radically different film. It's a documentary. And when we first had the first meeting and talk of the festival, I was very impressed by this way of doing a documentary and the way you reveal something that none of us, or at least us Romanians, don't consider so often, that behind all the tourist things that we don't have in Romania, there are people who actually live there and how this works. Tell us how you came to the idea and how much time did you spend with the guys or in the place, or how it actually worked out?
Okay, so yeah, so at the beginning, I just want to thank the festival and thank you for showing the film. And yeah, so how the film started is with me. I was asked by a historian, Egyptian historian. His name is Shihab Fakhri Ismail, to visit. To kind of work on one of his ideas or one of his um, uh, um, one of his subjects that is related to his PhD, and his PhD was about somehow part of it, the historical Cairo, and this is how I got to the location. So to this area. So actually, the entrance to his PhD is that at least from how I understand it, is that he tries to analyze the presence of these. There is two huge trash moons. I don't know, at the end of the film, like that are kind of they exist next to the historical site, and these moons are actually so basically they were around the exactly right outside of the wall of Old Cairo. So Old Cairo, there was like a city wall, and then you had the trash moons where all the I don't know, like the remains of the city somehow are thrown outside. So this was his subject, and he kind of wanted me to translate and try to find to do something around this or around the area. So when I went there, we went there the first time together. We met one of the characters that lives in Azbet Abuarn, which is an informal settlement that's actually of people living in informal houses. They live right next to this moon and exactly right next to also the historical site. So we didn't know also that there was a historical site because it's kind of, it exists and it doesn't exist somehow. Like it's you feel it's kind of forgotten inside chaotic Cairo and city. Um, and it's semi-closed, so it's supposed to be open for people to just visit, but then it's not. And so when we met Mahmoud, who's one of the characters in the film, he mentioned that there is a historical site there, and then I went alone at some point after that to see it, and yeah, and then I saw it for the first time, and I didn't know that something, there is some like a huge space such as this one that exists actually in the middle of Cairo. And it's weird that it's not advertised or anything. So so I decided to I thought of, okay, why don't I make a film about this space? Why don't I just go and shoot it and see what happens and just have the material and spend time there with the camera. So what happened is that I went there for maybe 2 or 3 months after the first time I went to the whole place, and I went with a small crew, and we got some permits to shoot, and when we were there, suddenly, like the guards of the place actually came out and they asked us for some extra permits if we have, because in Egypt you have to have like different levels of permits. So you have like a general permits on the street, but then also if you are in a historical site, you have to have like a permit to shoot from the Ministry of Tourism. And because the place is so vast and there was no sight of anyone there, I didn't think that actually there were guards or there was anyone from the government there. So we actually stopped shooting, and I had to go and issue the permits again. But when this happened, I mean, during this encounter itself, the guard and Mahmoud, who's the guy who we met at the beginning, I met at the beginning, they kind of decided, they went into a conversation together, and I listened to it. And this conversation somehow to me revealed some kind of tension that I didn't know. Basically, it was the first time they saw each other, but I felt that they knew each other very well. So they had very, very, I don't want to say like formed ideas of who each other, who is the guard of this place and who is the guy who's in his age, supposedly his age group, coming from Azbat Abu Arn, like what does he do in his life, and they clashed somehow a little bit, but then everything was fine. So yeah, so what I did is that I went back and we applied for further permits to go and shoot there, and then and I just had this idea, okay, why don't I just recreate this this conversation somehow, but also, yeah, and just I didn't want to kind of write it down or anything. So I just memorized what I heard, and I tried to find a way and the right time in the day when we were shooting, where they would just kind of, where I could ignite the conversation to start, but then leave them at the same time. And I think also this I was thinking of that in terms of why also I didn't change lenses when they were talking, like there was like the main shot of the conversation itself is like done in one shot. I didn't interfere in it in any way. So so yeah, so I just wanted to kind of I found, like, this is the last thing I will say, I found their positions interesting on how they position themselves towards these antiquities. And of course, historically, antiquities in Egypt are kind of intertwined with nationalism, the idea of of an Egyptian state, and the idea of an Egyptian state that claims ownership to antiquities, and by default, then it's our I don't know, like nationalist somehow, an affirmation of being Egyptian to protect it. But then when you go into details and how people actually interact in the day to day, like in every day, you see different tactics and different ideas coming out also of what is antiquities and how to find value in them. So yeah, I hope I kind of made it made things.
Yeah, this is one of the most interesting part. The way people living there and working there relate to all this, because it's a perspective that does not get shown too often. You don't get to see these people who live next to great ruins or forgotten ruins. And also, how many days did you spend filming there? Because you said you came and then you took a break and you came back some months later, but actually shooting the film.
Yeah, so I would say 1 day. Yeah.
You were very, very fast and efficient, because did you consider the first time you went there as a prospection, like checking how to shoot, where to put the camera?
I mean,
well planned, or did you just go there and let it flow?
So basically, when I went there the first time, I kind of and also I like, the only thing I thought of is that, okay, I don't want to put any lights. I don't want, so the only thing I would do is that I would find ways to block the sun or kind of use the sun to actually as a filler. So the only thing I did for preparation in that sense, I just chose a day that's overcast. So that's like where you have clouds, and then I would have some time with sun and sometimes without sun, and so I can just use that. Because I wanted to kind of be still like a one-man crew. It wasn't a one-man crew, of course, but it was a very minimal crew, and I just had my friend who was the assistant director, line producer, like doing everything. And me doing like the camera and all that. So yeah, so I think I went there, and with knowing that the conversation scene I wanted to be at some point of day, because then there will be the clouds. So I'll try to manipulate the day around this conversation scene. It's like it was the highlight of the most important moment for me, and also I had to think of how to make them deal with each other outside of outside of the camera. So I had to think of things like, did I want them to interact from the beginning of the day? Did I want to separate them? Because then, like if I want to do it in one take from the first time, I need the certain energy. So I didn't want them to become friends, for example, like as in that they would engage in. So I kind of tried to, with the line producer, we talked about Muhammad Yani, we talked about that we didn't want them to speak from the beginning of the day. And whenever we found them, because sometimes I was just taking like, like landscape shots. So if we found them like going around and talking to each other, somehow we would somehow intervene. So yeah, so this is this is the this is the preparation I can think of.
Okay. Well, that's a very interesting thing to find out, because it's almost instinctual. You cut off one of the things, like the interaction with all a bit conflict, a bit of energy, and you went after that with a very clear idea about light. And wow, yeah. Now I would like to say hello to our friend Andrew. Andrew, are you with us?
always.
Ah, so basically we had this conversation, a bit of it in the first meeting we had online. But I'm still curious about this particular film because it's on one hand it's very Egyptian. I mean, it is in ancient ruins in Cairo with Egyptian people, and on the other hand, is it let's say common for Egyptian short films to approach this living with ruins and this relationship with the past that is a very, very big and grandiose past? Is it a common subject in Egyptian films, or is it just there?
I have to say in the beginning that this is the first time I meet Ahmed. I've watched the film in Berlinale in its premiere last year, and we didn't have time to meet. Although I liked the film very much, so I have to say hello for the first time. I think the relation between the history and the historical places maybe not in the same way Ahmed introduced in his film. But sometimes it happened to see this relation. Actually, also in Berlinale last year, there was another short film. I don't remember the name now, but also was dealing with not a historical place, but an old place which was turned into ruins by the government to build a new city. And this is happening a lot in Egypt in the past few years and currently. So we still, I think we are going to watch more films that related not just to historical places as itself, but also to all the places which have roots in our memories, and how it's going to be and how people are dealing with this situation after all of these places are demolished somehow.
Okay, so it's also one side of the modernization you're saying that gets a critical perspective from the young filmmakers, right?
Yes, I think it's happening to be something like this.
Okay, thanks. We reached Dummy, the Lithuanian entry in this short film selection. And do we have anybody from Dummy?
Unfortunately, not. So we can go directly to Lucia.
Hello.
Contraindications.
Hi again, thanks for having me and the film.
Tell us your story, the story of the film. Why this idea? How difficult it was to shoot it? Everything, like the boys did before.
Well, this was actually my. It is a film school. It was my bachelor film, and I think it was. I had like a whole year to prepare it, not a year, but a school year, something like that. I think the most difficult part was kind of production-wise, because we had a very low budget, and this was actually shot in a studio. So all the whole apartment where the action takes place is in a studio, and we had to create all the set design in a very, very short time, and with a very low budget.
Okay.
And I don't know, the story is is very personal somehow. It was, some of the themes were things that I was very interested at the time of making a film about.
So did you choose this subject? You knew this is going to be my end of studies film? Or did you have more options? How long did you work on the script, on the preparing this idea? Because it's very well tuned, and I think it took some time to write the script.
I think from the original idea to the actual filming, it was like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, 5 to 6, something like that. But in the beginning, I wasn't even I didn't even begin with the situation with the mother and the daughter and the question of divorce. It was more about a certain dynamic that I was trying to approach between two people, and it wasn't from the beginning that it was supposed to be this particular situation. So should I develop more on that, or?
Well, if you like, if you feel like it, yes. On the other hand, are you a hypochondriac?
Sorry?
Are you a hypochondriac? Do you think that you are very sensitive to any kind of disease and stuff?
Oh, yeah, well, actually, that was one of the aspects of the film that was very autobiographical, And at that time, I was actually very, very, I don't know the English pronunciation of that, hypochondrial.
Hypochondriac?
Hypochondrial, something like that. But it's really interesting what happens to that part of me during the pandemic, actually, because I think I became less of that in the beginning of the lockdown, because somehow it was like all of a sudden the whole world was functioning according to my anxieties. It was a very strange change about that.
Is this a rehearsed film, or did you just work a bit with the actors and then you just shot the sequences?
This was a very under rehearsed film because I happened to find the actresses very late in the pre-production. So the first time they met was on the first day of shooting, and I just had some talks with them separately before. And I think that well, the text, the dialogue was very hard, and it would have really been necessary for this kind of classic preparation, the rehearsal. But it's really worked for me and for them, I think, to be on the spot.
Actually worked. That's why I was asking, because it's that kind of film that you suspect the director put some soul there, some personal experience, and you actually suspect it's pretty rehearsed. So you did wonderfully without rehearsing too much with it. And now I skipped the question about future projects and how are things right now and what are your plans. But I just asked it to you, and I will ask Ahmed after that. So what's next?
Well, right now I just finished editing my first feature-length documentary, which I've been working on for a little bit over a year. And I'm very happy about it, actually.
Well, congratulations. Tell us about it.
Thank you.
What is it about?
It is about it is about a 18 years old refugee called Fatima from Afghanistan who lives in Bucharest with her family. and they've been living here as refugees for 4 years now.
Okay. So you are still in post-production, you just edited it, so we'll wait a bit until it reaches the festival stage. Well, yeah, thanks. And Ahmed, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about your projects for the next film, or if you shot another film meanwhile. What happened after The Promise?
Yeah, so after The Promise, I met a writer from Alexandria. So I'm actually from Alexandria, I'm not from Cairo. And her name is Hero Salah, and I'm working with her on her novel to try to make it into a feature film. It's her first novel, and it hasn't been published yet. So yeah, so we've been working on this film for now 1 year. We did a very long kind of script writing workshop that was which happened during COVID, so it extended throughout like 10 months. And right now we're in development, in I would say mid-development, late development stage. And we're working on that. And I'm also writing a short film, but that's another thing, like a fiction film I want to do maybe this year. So yeah, so this is what's there. What's here.
So you'll be busy for a while with the long script.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah, but that's good, because one of the positive things for the film industry that is pretty badly hit because of the pandemic is because people can actually do the pre-production for some projects, even if it's writing a script and rewriting it and choosing between drafts. Well, in all this general disaster, at least preparing for a film got an enormous amount of time that generally is not possible to have as a director or as a screenwriter or as a producer. So I'll go back to Mirona.
Yes, I am here. I'm still here. No, it was a nice conversation. Actually, quite strange, because your film are all of them very fresh, and I don't know, in time, very, like pieces, of stories, but very well done and very well conducted. And now it was a long discussions, but still very interesting. And I want to congratulate all of you, because I am very glad and honored that we took your films in this first edition of the festival. And for those who missed the first collection of short films, they have the opportunity to watch them also tomorrow in the rerun section at 4 o'clock. Don't forget that the concept of the festival is being together at the same time. So we have precise time screenings as in cinemas. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, you have the opportunities either to rewatch the films or to see it for the first time. And then we will have tomorrow the fourth collection of short films. Don't forget that you can vote your favorite film, and you can give actually a big prize to the producer of the film, like 1,000 euros. It's the prize. So watch the films, vote your favorite, because your voice is very important. And tonight we still have a screening at 8:30. It is about a Greek classic by Vasilis Vafreas, who will also join us the discussion after the screening at 10 p.m. So go to Festival Scope, watch the film, because it's a bright fiction. Even if it's from 80s, it's modern, and it's a piece of art. So I really encourage to see it. And then let's meet again at 10 p.m. to discuss with the director. It will be a pleasure for sure. Okay, thank you. And yeah, and if you have time, don't forget tonight also we have the national cocktails with focus on Greece. So at 11 p.m. we can meet there as well. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.